Hello and welcome to this video. We're going to be talking about normalization. It's not a perfect by all means, but we're going to do the best we can do. And this is the data is similar to a website, so I gotta give them the credit for doing that. So this is basically the website that I got. It's not identical 100%, but very similar to it because we're going to be changing how we're going to do it different from that website that actually I believe there's something missing, or my approach is a little bit different than their approach. As you notice here, we have a table. It's written in Excel. Excel is not a database by any means. It's a number crunching number. And if you notice here, we have the titles for the data. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a different color. And basically, those are the attributes that they're going to become on the database. My attempt, or our attempt, it should be to normalize the database so we will have no data redundancy. And we're going to go through the three normal form. The first NF, that's first normal form, second normal form, and third normal form. And once we're done with that, we should be enough in order to conclude the table is normalized. If you take a look at the the title for each column, we have name, and we have address, and we have movies, titles, types, duration of the movies, and salutation. This is a completely unnormalized database table. Actually, I'm sorry, we should be ended up with a database from a table. This is not a normalized table. The reason that we're going to think about it is to take it one step at a time and talk about the first normal form. The first normal form, this is the take it from first normal form, from the unnormalized database to a first normal form, is to have to eliminate some of the problem associated with this stage, which is all data must be atomic, and also no repeating group, no repeating groups, and also each row must have a unique key. A unique key is called, which is called the primary key, that identify each row individually. Primary key. All right. If you take a look now at our table here, you notice that the name is not in atomic form. We have the first name and the last name, so I really need to break that into two attributes. The first one is going to be first name, and the second one is going to be last name. If you take a look at the movie titles, we have a repeating group. We have two titles for movies that Ty Smith rented, and the same thing that it has to be as a result of having two movie titles in one cell. We have two types. We have the adventure for the first one and the second one, and also we have a repeating group in the duration of the movie. Salutation is impacted by the name, of course, so it's going to be a single value. Notice also there's the repeating groups for the second person, Mary Jones, as she had rented two movies, and also the type of the movies associated in the duration. So the very first thing is to go ahead and start with another table. We're going to go ahead and say here first name. And we're going to copy and cut a last name, of course, address in this case. And we're going to go ahead and say movie titles and type. And just to speed up the process here, I'm going to steal this. And also, I'm going to go ahead and steal as well this word from here. And also, I'm going to go ahead and do that text wrap just to save a couple space so it could still be on the screen. The first name is going to be Ty, just Ty by itself. Smith, of course, last name. Let's break it into atomic pieces of data. This is going to be that street, so I'm going to copy it. And now we have Die Hard. That's the first movie, and of course, it could have been easy if I did actually grab it from here. And this is going to be Adventure. Okay, and the movie duration is 180. And notice how I'm making a mistake right there. And of course, Misters. And of course, we have to have no repeating group. So I'm going to break this as a, and I could use the fill handle in Excel to help me. Obviously, it didn't help very well because that I still live and didn't move somewhere else. So here we're going to say here gone with the wind. And of course, we could go ahead and write the text for this one here. Take it a little bit down. And this is a romance. And this is it's a really long movie, more than 123, but and this is here. We're going to get that. So we broke actually the full name into atomic, and also we prevented the repeating group by breaking it into different rows in this case. We're going to do the same thing for Mary Jones. I'm going to take Mary and Jones, and we're going to go ahead and get that from here. And we're going to say an American game. And also, that's going to be a romance. Notice that the word romance purposely misspelled, and I'm going to leave it as it is. Misspelled 132, and she is Ms. or Miss. The same thing here, Mary Jones. I'm going to go ahead and Mary Jones, and I'm going to go ahead and get her address again. And her second movie is Fly with the Spirit, and that is horror. And that's 124. And again, see here, I'm already trying to make a mistake by typing Mr. instead of Miss. The last one is, again, another person by the name Ty Smith, who has no connection whatsoever with the first Ty Smith. And he rented the movie The American Friend, and that is a drama. And actually, movie title, I'm sorry, the address is misspelled. Immediately we get into this situation as we live in a different situation, place. And this is actually The American Friend, and that is a drama, and it is 154. And of course, he is a doctor, just to show you that he's a different person from the previous one. We still have not finished with that first normal form because we still have a big issue associated with the fact that we don't have a primary key for each table. So what are we going to do? What we're going to do is to look, we took care of the atomic data, we took care of the repeating groups. Now we need to think about how to look at the, we have a person, that's an entity. We have a movie, which is another entity. I could add two primary key that identify each one of them, and I could treat them as a primary key, but we're going to get to a problem. So I could go ahead and put here for customers, customer ID, to identify each one of those. So I'll go ahead and give one to Ty Smith, another, it's the same one, I kind of change it, two for Mary Smith, and two for Mary Smith, and three for Ty Smith, the second Ty Smith. And I could go ahead and do movie ID, okay? And I could get Die Hard is, we'll say here, MO1, and Gone with the Wind, MO2, and American, let's go ahead and do this actually, wrap text so we could see what we're talking about here. An American game, so it's going to be MO3, and Fly with Spirited is MO4. Person could rent the same movie. If I change this American to, let's say, Die Hard, okay? So that's actually would be a good example in order to go back and say this is actually movie number one. So maybe Ty Smith was different than the first Ty Smith rented the same movie, but they are not the same person. If I try to get those two together, as a primary key. Let me go ahead and see here. Both of them as a primary key. Okay. The problem that I'm going to get into that if the same person rented the same movie twice, then I must repeat the customer ID and the movie ID. So I'm going to get into this type of trouble. There's a lot of situation in data normalization when we have two pieces of data, which we call them composite key, result into a primary key, as we've seen in author and book, where we cannot repeat the author and the book ID or ISBN number twice in the list. So that will be customer ID and movie in this case is going to be can be repeated. So what I could actually do in order to get more meaningful, I could go ahead and add another row, and I'm going to go ahead and call it transaction ID, like for, and that is going to be transaction 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So those are going to be unique that identify each record individually. But still, I need to have the customer ID to identify the customer, and I need to identify the movie uniquely by itself. Even this is my primary key. I'm going to go ahead and give it a red color in this case as a primary key with the background of, let's say, make it, here we go, make it a little bit bolder. Still, I need the customer ID to identify the entity. At this moment, I could feel that I am actually in my first normal form. What I wanted to do now, since every no repeating group, all the data is not atomics, not compound, and we have a unique piece of data that identifies each row in the table, I'm going now to think about the second normal form, which is how to look for partial dependency. Partial dependency, it's going to be if there is any of those here, all of these, okay, all of these are actually dependent on any other things than this, okay? Obviously, you will notice that the first name is not dependent on the transaction ID, it's dependent on the customer ID. So I'm going to start with the second normal form and start to create new tables. The first one is going to be the customers. Okay, that's my customer table. And we're going to have customer ID. Okay, and I'm going to say here first name, last name, and we'll see what else we have. So let's go ahead and see customer ID is going to be first of all 1, and that is customer ID, and it's going to be type is depending on this. It's not depending on the transaction, and the last name is Smith, also depending on the customer ID, Smith here, and the address also belongs to the customer ID, so it has to be here as well. Notice here. Okay, so this is my first. If we talk about the movie title, this is not dependent on the transaction as we speak at this moment, but it does depend on the movie. That's the movie table, and we're going to have, let's go ahead and put it up so it could be in the same level. Your movie, and we're going to go ahead and say movie ID, and the movie ID in this case. And we're going to go ahead and say the title of the movie, also the duration of the movie. All right, and now we still have to look at the salutation, which is, it should be, I'll look it up here in a second, salutation, and that is also dependent on the customer, which is, in this case, is Mr. So let's go ahead and get another here, the movie ID. This is another entity entirely. So let's go ahead and do this here. Another movie, and this one here. Go ahead and copy this with this one here. That's the name of the entity. All right. And we're going to go ahead and say the movie ID, which is MO1, and that is going to be, in this case here, Die Hard. And also we have the type of the movie for the duration, the type of the movie and duration. Okay, the type is going to be adventure. Here we go. Just to make it up, and it's going to be 180. And I can copy it that way. And if you notice here, that movie ID is depending only on the movie, and the customer, the pieces of the data as customer. Of course, we're going to leave those later, and it's going to become the junction table that is it's going to really link those two tables together. Even we do have the primary key, those are going to be a foreign keys later, and this is going to be a foreign key for the movie table. It's going to be a foreign key for the customer table, even though there is a transaction table, which is going to be actually to tell us who went did what. So let's keep doing this with the data. We have customer 2, which is in this case, we have Mary, and we have Jones, and she lives, if I could go ahead and copy her address quickly. Here we go, Mary, and her Mrs. And now we talk about the second movie, which is MO2, which is, if I recall, this is going to be Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind. Here we go. Title, Gone with the Wind. And of course, we're going to type as romance. Okay. And the duration is going to be the 123. Okay. Now we have a third customers in the customer table, which is another type. Smith here. And he lives into, sorry, I'm scrolling back and forth. I hope this doesn't confuse you. And we finish with the customer. We have only 3 customers. And now we have to put, of course, the doctor here. Then the movie 3, and let's go ahead and see what is about the movie 3, an American game. And here we go. I'm going to go ahead and grab it. And also it's romance. And I'm going to make the mistake of this. Actually, I'm going to copy the romance with the misspelled here. And I'm going to go ahead and say 132 or copy it directly from the cell. Okay, then we have another movie, which is movie 4, and it's going to be Fly with the Spirited. Here we go, and that is horror. Okay, and that is also a long movie. Let me go ahead and do it this way. So now we have the two. This is basically the primary key for the movie. Okay, go ahead and do it with the yellow here. And this is the primary key for the customers. And still we have a third table, which is, as you will see, I'm going to copy it exactly as it is and take it out, copy here, and put it right here. Now we're going to go ahead and see, this is basically my primary key for this table. And I'll go ahead and change the color of the, but these are going to be foreign key. So this is going to come from here. We notice here what I'm going to do. Let's say shape here. Okay. And this is my one key. It's going to go directly here. Okay. That's going to be my foreign key. And also we're going to take this one here from this one here all the way to here. And that is going to be the one, and this is going to be the many. Those are not going to work together as a composite key to give me that data, knowing that a movie can be rented twice by somebody. So therefore, we're going to keep it. We keep it as it is, just for the sake of having it as a foreign key, and we still have the transaction ID as a primary key. So now we look again one more time. We split all partial dependency. Our customer IDs and movie IDs are dependent on the transaction ID in order for us to complete it. First name is dependent on the customer ID. Last name is dependent on the customer ID. addresses, and the salutation is dependent. And the title of the movie is dependent on the movie ID. The type of the movie is dependent on the movie. The duration is dependent on the movie ID. So everything is dependent on the primary key, and that really eliminate any partial dependency. We don't have really a composite key per se. It's in order to indicate there is an actual partial dependency. But I'm going through it one attribute at a time in order to assure you that we understand the concept clearly. So we're going to go to the third norm form, which is the transitive dependency, or dealing with the transitive dependency. We don't have a non key that is dependent on another non key. If you take a look closely at the customer table here, the customer table, notice that the first name is dependent on the customer ID, last name is dependent on customer ID, the address is dependent on customer ID. But the salutation is really dependent on the first name. So Ty is Mr., Mary is Miss, and Ty is also, in this case, a doctor. So in order to prevent any mistake that could happen in the salutation later, okay, and we have to really make sure that I have to change that. It's misspelled. So we need to be able to see that this salutation, since it's dependent on the first name, which is a non, it's not a primary key, it's another key. Then therefore, we should actually split those into another table. So what are we going to do? We're going to go ahead and do it this way. Another table, we're going to call it salutation. Okay, salutation. Okay, and we're going to have 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 10. And this is going to be Mr., this is going to be Mrs., this is going to be Doctor, this is going to be Mrs., and we could keep adding those in case we need them in the future. So now we have another, we go ahead and get that from here, another table that is going to be the salutation. So now I could go back to this table, and instead of leaving it as a Mr., I could go ahead and put 1, and I could go ahead and put 2. So there's no chance for me to misspell doctor instead of writing as dr dot and spell the whole word doctor. So I just put the number, and if there's any change need to be done, it will be done here, not here. So this way now you could see now in this case, as you notice, this is the primary key from here, the primary key from here. One second here, I'm clicking something I shouldn't be clicking on. I should be going to the shape, and notice here, this is my primary key that is going to, well, this is the wrong object. Let me go ahead and do it this way here. Okay, there we go. Let me get rid of it, so I'll get another object here quickly. Here we go. Here, let me do an arrow quickly. Here we go. This is my primary key in the salutation, and the salutation in the customer is becoming the foreign key. If you take a look at the movie, again, the type of the movie, since I do notice that I have misspelled the word romance, and that could be a problem. So what I'm going to do here, if you notice, the type of the movie is depending on the title of the movie or the nature of the movie. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and say types. Here we go. And it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and it could be 100, of course. And we're going to say here, actually, ID. Okay, ID in this case. ID. And I shouldn't have left my face. That's a problem. And we're going to go ahead and say here type And I could go ahead and say adventure. Hopefully I'm spelling everything correctly. Now I could go ahead and say romance. Romance, I'll spell my check. And again, this is horror. And let's say here drama. And as you notice here, if I do this one here and I hit F7, checking spelling, and notice now this one here will be 1, and this is will be 2, and now this is 2. So this is really where it gets really cool, the fact that I would never, if I didn't, since I checked my spelling with this one here correctly, by putting 2 here, it's going to be always spelled correctly. And here we could go ahead and 3, and if we have drama, somehow we'll be able to put it. Actually, Die Hard shouldn't be drama here, so it should be an adventure. We change our mind later. Here we go. And notice now this is going to be my uh, fifth table. And notice that I could go ahead and get uh, the arrow here to show you this is the 1 and this is the many. And this is basically what we normalize a database from completely unnormalized table into the third normal form. Simple, but hopefully that will be able to show you all the steps. Again, I'm trying to show you here slowly what was done initially and how we went about it one at a time. First normal form, all data should be atomic and no repeating groups. The second is to eliminate any partial dependency and create. Of course, I'm sorry, the first normal form we must have a primary key for it. Make sure that break all the entities and no partial dependency, and make sure that you have a primary key for every table also. And any composite key should be dealt with. And of course, any non-key that is dependent on another non-key should be eliminated in order to get to the third normal form. Thank you for watching, and I hope this has helped you somehow. And if you have any question, you always could come and ask me. Thank you.